Hey guys, it's another Moto Stories with Unkie Phil, but I'm with some of my favorite people in the world in one of the favorite places in the world. This is Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, and there's an event right now that happens every year, except for COVID, called the American Motorcyclists Association Vintage Motorcycle Days. Now, here at this event, you can see vintage motocross racing, you can see vintage hare scrambles, you can see trials racing, you can see motorcycle road racing, sidecar racing, all in one place. As we were saying, there's many disciplines happening at one place for like 3 days. So it's all happening everywhere all the time. And it's also the world's largest vintage motorcycle swap meet in one spot. We discovered this about 19 some odd years ago, and we've never missed one ever under any circumstances, right? Like, that's the rule. So here with me today is my friend Bagel, AKA Tom Donahue.
Yep.
And my friend Kurt Edwards from Kentucky, and Carl from Cincinnati. So this is where we all get together, and on my right, your left, John McElfresh, of course. Yes. And why this is important is we've said many times, John, what's your nickname?
Johnny Mac. The Honda Whisperer.
That's right. John is the Honda Whisperer. And I'm going to tell you, he's a busy man this weekend. He has laid those magic digits.
Yeah, I think about the 6 bikes running right now.
There you go.
Nice.
Isn't that something? So like, he's in hog heaven right now. And we have everything. We've got what did we figure out? We had 400 feet of campsite. Because we got here and we locked our claws in, and Steve, the man behind the camera, actually volunteered to sleep here on Wednesday night to guard our spot.
I followed his progress on Facebook. I was like,
Well done.
He stretched his vacation out by 1 extra day. So this is an interesting thing because I'm going to give you guys just a little tiny intro. The man to my left and your right is Tom Bagel Donahue. And I've known Tom since at least we figured out 1993, which is getting to be a very long time ago.
Yeah.
And we were both a lot younger then.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, we were both fit and we were cool and sexy. And we were at the peak of our game collectively. And so we were apex predators. And we showed up at a racetrack called Summit Point in West Virginia that was taken over by a scooter rally.
Yes.
And Tom had come from Delaware.
Yep.
I had come from Cleveland.
Rode all the way on my P200.
You rode, again, was that your first stupid long ride?
No, I don't think so, because I had actually ridden up to Montreal earlier that summer on my P200.
Oh, that's right.
Yep.
Yes, because that was the story that everybody was freaking out about.
Yep.
So you'd already kind of achieved celebrity status among the small-wheeled two-stroke enthusiasts.
Yep.
So I roll in and I'm just like, I didn't even remember this. But
you rolled in a 69 El Camino with shaved door handles.
Yeah.
Painted gloss black.
All true.
It
had louvers everywhere.
Yeah, and it was slick. Yeah. And I remember a Vespa GS in the back.
Yeah, I had a GS in the back at the time. Yeah. And so I had this El Camino I built to haul Harley Davidsons and stuff. And so I love this idea, and that was my second American scooter rally. Right?
Yeah.
And it was a big deal for me, and I really wasn't sure what I was going to run into, and I didn't know anything about the community, really. I had no idea that there was a cult.
Yeah.
I just didn't, I'd done vintage cars as a kid growing up and Harley Davidsons as a little hobby on the side, but I didn't know that you guys all had this religion.
Kind of, yeah.
It was a religion. And there were different tribes that did different things in different backgrounds. There were the mods with all the mirrors and the perfect clothing, even though it was 95 degrees and sunny. They all looked great, sweating their asses off. Mm-hmm. And then there were the skinheads, and these are the good skinheads, not the Jerry Springer skinheads. We're talking about guys that are into ska music and a Jamaican thing and just a working class attitude. Yep. And they were all there, and they have a certain look about them too. Yep. And it was just so cool, man. Yeah. It was great. And I showed up as like the normal guy. I didn't have a team yet. I didn't have a tribe. And you showed up, you didn't have a tribe.
Well, sort of.
I think you identified mod.
Well, not really. I identified him more as the scooter boy, which is the guy who just is really into scooters and likes to ride and wrench and just all about the bikes.
But now this must be said, Bagel is not just a guy at the time from Delaware, because you went to school in Germany, didn't you?
I did.
And you speak Russian?
I speak German and Russian.
German and Russian.
And French and Dutch.
And French and Dutch.
Yep.
And you speak Russian.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm way out of my league. I speak drunk German, right? Literally. I sound like I've been kicked in the head.
And you do fairly well.
Thank you very much. Yes. So, danke sehr. But here we have this weird community, right? This thing is happening. And he shows up and he's got this really nice P200 with white trim, and it's like nothing else. You went a scooter boy direction.
Yep.
You were 80s scooter boy guy.
Yep.
And like his scooter, like when you started it, it literally had a Mento beat. It was like ska. So, like I was like, we knew we were in the right spot. But it was a motorcycle racetrack, and I think maybe that year they had cars because I thought it was the vintage Jags and stuff
Could be,
on
could
the
have
track.
been, yeah.
It was super place for us to hang out.
Yeah.
But we kind of, we bonded pretty quickly. It was a good time. And then we decided we're going to keep doing this. I decided I'm going to keep doing this. And the next year, he shows up on a Heinkel Tourist.
Yep. The one I brought back from Berlin, actually.
Yeah, are you guys paying attention? The bike he brought back from Berlin.
Yep.
This is not just an East Coast guy from Delaware.
Yep.
The Heinkel Tourist shows up, and we were like, of the group where it was like, oh, somebody shows up in Allstate. That's kind of weird.
Yeah.
And he shows up with the literal Hindenburg of scooters, right? This is German craftsmanship that every piece of it has been well thought out. It's art.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And the back of it looks like a 60s car.
Very functional art.
Extremely.
Yes.
It had functioning turn signals and electric starter,
Yeah.
which none of us had.
Yep.
And so what year was your Heinkel?
That one was a 58.
58.
Yep.
So that's called a 103 A2.
That's the A1, actually.
The A1.
Yep.
Okay, it's the A1.
Yep.
And then he shows up, and I mean, everybody just dies. Now, what I will tell you guys is, in the vintage community, when somebody shows up on the pièce de résistance, usually they're like, don't touch it, don't breathe on it, and don't look at it wrong, right? But Bagel, on the other hand, was like, I'm here to have a good time.
Yeah. And hey, you haven't ridden a Heinkel before? Go ahead, take it out, try it out, see what you think.
He did.
Yeah.
Straight up. That was my first time ever riding a Heinkel.
Because this is such a rare bike.
It is.
That people don't really get to see them, let alone ride them.
Yeah.
And I figured, hey, it's an old bike. It's been beat up. Let's just let people have fun with it. And I let people, take it for rides just so they could try it out. And
it's rarer than rocking
it.
horse shit. I mean, we're talking about this thing is unique.
Yeah.
So we do all these dumb events. Like, dumb events are kind of what we do.
Yes.
And we're doing this thing called the scooter pylon. And the idea is you take a given bike, doesn't matter what it is, and you just add people until the bike won't go anymore or it falls over. And we're getting like 6 or 7 people on a Vespa, maybe 8 or 9 on a Lambretta with people dripping off of it. And then what happens is he shows up. Now, for you guys, this is a dangerous thing to do. Because now you're asking your friends to put their paws and their dick beaters all over your piece of priceless coolness. And they're grabbing and holding on to things.
That shouldn't be grabbed or held on to.
That shouldn't be grabbed or held on to.
Yep.
Scooters are functional art.
Yeah.
And you don't just go dripping yourself off of David,
And a lot of them are made of sheet metal.
Exactly.
So, you
warping, bending, knocking cast parts off.
Yeah, not
but
so good.
Tom's just like, come on, boys. How many did you get?
I got 11 people on that Heinkel.
11 people on one motor scooter.
Yep.
And it was the humanity. Like, people were holding onto each other by parts of humans you shouldn't hold on to. And we all got to know each other a hell of a lot better that day. It was really cool.
Yep.
And at that point, I was like, this is generous. Generous to a fault. Unbelievable. Super nice guy. Tolerates idiots all around us. But we didn't know that this was when he was only either Tom Donahue or
Heinkel Tom.
Heinkel Tom,
at the
right?
time, yeah.
So Heinkel Tom was Heinkel Tom, and it was pretty easy to know who Heinkel Tom was. Now tell us what happens when Heinkel Tom went out west.
Well, so I moved out to California about 20 years ago, and my bikes weren't running at the time, so I didn't get to a rally right away. But I got my P200 running again. And in the fall of 2002, went to my first rally on the West Coast. Now, I didn't really know anybody. I hadn't, sought anybody out to get into the scene out there. But I was really excited that I finally had my bike running again. And I was like, now I can show up to a scooter rally. And I was all excited, showed up to the meetup spot early at like 6:45 before anybody was there. So I grabbed a beer and sat at the bar. I figured I'd watch the door and see when some scooterists would come in, because I figured they'd be pretty distinctive.
Yeah, even West Coast scooterists kind of look like scooterists.
Yeah,
right.
you know what they look like.
The tribes are still there.
Yeah. So I was sitting there, drinking my beer and saw some people come in. I wasn't sure if they were scooters. They kind of looked more like punks, but I was like, well, maybe, I don't know. I'll wait and see if anybody else shows up.
Right.
And So I was just kind of hanging out. And then I noticed a few minutes later that these people were all sitting down at the far end of the bar, and they were looking at me and talking to each other and pointing at me. And I was starting to get worried. I thought, oh shit, am I going to get my ass kicked here? What's going on? And then one of the guys came over and walked right up to me. He said, "You're not Donut." And I said, no. And then they all came over and they're like, "Oh my God, who is this guy? He's not Donut. He looks just like Donut. What is going on here?" And I'm like, what is going on here? I don't know. And then finally they explained to me that one of their Scooter's friends looks like he's my doppelganger.
It's striking.
Totally uncanny.
Tell me a story.
And so they basically said, well, he's Donut.
Right.
Is his nickname, and because you two look so much alike, you are Bagel. And that nickname is stuck ever
And
since.
that's stuck, and it stuck instant. Like
Yep.
it was glue.
Yeah.
And I have the privilege of knowing both of you,
Yeah.
and you do look a hell of a lot like Donut.
Yep.
It's not even silly. There's more than just a familiar relationship.
Right.
Yeah, it's
And-
crazy.
And the fact that it was my first scooter rally on the West Coast, that
Yeah.
everyone got to know me as Bagel.
As
And
Bagel.
so
Oh
it's instant.
man. And you were in the West Coast for quite a while.
Yeah, I was in California for 20 years.
Yep.
Just moved up to Oregon last year.
Yeah.
To the Eugene area.
So
And, yeah.
I'm a big fan of motorcycle podcasts in general. I love motorcycle podcasts, and I met so many cool people through that, and it
Yep.
just opens up your world a little bit. And so I'm listening to my motorcycle podcast, and I find Liza in the Motorcycle Misfits.
Yes.
And I mean, I am dying. Every time I listen to it, I'm just dying. I'm doing two things. I'm laughing and I'm yelling at my radio, right? So it turns like, "Oh my God, you're wrong. Oh my God, that's great. You're wrong." And so I mentioned on our podcast, I'm like, the Misfits, you got to listen to the Misfits. They're out of Santa Cruz. They are the most insane group of people. I don't know where they found all these people,
Yep.
but it's truly the United Colors of Benetton
Yep.
in a motorcycle community, in a co-op.
Yep.
And
And that was right in the beginning of 2014, right as I had just moved to Santa Cruz from the South Bay in California.
And so it turns out-
And I heard this. I'm like, motorcycles and Misfits and Recycle Garage in Santa Cruz. Why have I never heard of this?
Yep.
I have to go check this out.
Drop your mic.
someday.
Yeah.
So
And it's freaking hilarious because
yeah,
he goes in and he instantly becomes a misfit,
Right.
because I knew that when you got that was, again, we always talk about the peanut butter and chocolate scenario.
Yep.
I was like, when Tom gets into the group called the Misfits,
Yep.
it's going to be magical.
Yep.
And
it
I was
has
also
been.
I actually thought Liza would be able to turn him and get him onto motorcycles. I really did, because she's a powerful force. But I was like, but Tom really doesn't care for motorcycles.
it's just not my thing.
I know, and it's part of your identity to not care for motorcycles at this point.
It's not that
Yeah.
I don't like them. I do appreciate
Yeah.
them, and I think they're fantastic. It's just that I prefer riding scooters. I like the feel of scooters. I like the look of scooters. They're smaller. They're more nimble, and I have an affinity for small vehicles.
So
in the
Tom,
first
do you
place.
remember the time that Emmy and I showed up out there on the West Coast selling a whole bunch of bikes? And
Yes.
I was riding a Triumph TT 600, and Emmy was riding the Honda CB1.
Okay.
Right? We have two decent four-cylinder sport bikes there. And you decided to take us on a ride up through the Mystery Spot and all this beautiful area in the Redwoods above Santa Cruz.
Yep.
And Tom, of course, is Tom. So Tom's wearing a scooter skirt because it was a bit chilly.
Yes.
Look it up. It's a scooter skirt.
Yep.
And then Tom led us on a ride. Now, we'd been cross country, we'd been doing a little bit of riding, but we were mostly there to sell bikes and whatnot. So Tom took us on a bit of a ride on a Vespa. And we were on sport bikes. Do you know who couldn't keep up with Tom? None of us. Not a goddamn one of us. There's nobody in the world I would rather see rip through the corners and rip through you're a canyon rider. I mean,
Oh yeah. I love.
but
love
he
going
does
through the
it.
twisties.
He does it effortlessly. Like everybody's like, oh, leaned over, knee down. Tom looks like he's going to get groceries,
Yep.
but he's literally scraping metal. And we tried. We could not keep up with you. Anything. And Emmy's killing herself to do it. And I was like, well, I got a big motor. I've got damn near 100 horsepower here. I'm going to go get it. It doesn't matter. No. And it was like lightly damp, because Santa Cruz,
Yeah.
I don't know if you know, when it's not on fire, it's damp.
Yeah. It's a rainforest.
It's a
technically.
rainforest. And I'm just like, oh, no. And Tom is just like, yeah. It was amazing to ride with you in that environment. Because
Cool.
I was like, oh, I'm definitely not worthy of this. That's it. I'm still convinced that he could go out on any track in America and school most riders in the 600cc class on your damn 50.
Well, maybe. I don't have a lot of track experience, but I would love to learn. I would love to learn.
No, if they had a class
Yes.
in AMA for 250 autos, you'd be in.
250 scooters.
Now, tell
Sign me
folks
up.
how you got here, because here we are, Lexington, Ohio, middle of Ohio.
This is the best.
How did you get here?
I rode here on my Vespa GTS 250.
Yeah, he did, didn't he?
This is my cannonball bike that
Yep.
I've ridden on five scooter cannonball runs and taken across the country multiple times.
And how many states have you ridden in?
That bike I've ridden in 49 states. The only one is the only one I could not ride to, which is Hawaii. But I am planning to knock that one off the list next year if all goes well.
So you have ridden this machine
Yes.
that you brought with you
Yep,
to 49 of our 50 states.
absolutely. And
Hey guys, I will never be that cool.
No, nobody.
And your commute here today, your
Yep.
commute to get here, how many miles was your commute?
from where I started,
Yeah.
it was I think the total mileage is about 2,760 miles.
2,760 miles on a Vespa to come to AMA Vintage Motorcycle Days.
Yep.
Now,
And the myth, the legend.
if that isn't on next year's flyer
Yeah.
for why you should come to AMA Vintage Days, it fucking should be, because, yeah, you've been to you've ridden all over the world.
Yeah.
You've ridden in Pakistan.
Pakistan, Germany, France, Greece. Yeah.
On Vespas.
On Vespa, well, other scooters too.
Yeah, right. Other
but
scooters
mostly,
too, yeah.
mostly Vespas.
Yeah,
You make me feel insignificant.
exactly.
What have I done with my life?
Right.
Well-
No matter where I am literally in his shadow.
Well,
It's
then,
yeah.
And then there's also the other thing that I did on my ride here.
Yeah.
That I don't think anyone has done before, and I haven't gotten confirmation yet. I'm still trying to find out, but I think I am now the first person to ride the Saddle Soar 2000 on a Vespa. This is 2,000 miles within 48 hours for the to be certified by the Iron Butt Association.
That is amazing.
Thank you.
I mean, that is, I don't care what school of, whatever discipline you're into, it doesn't matter. Riding 1,000 miles in one day is
On anything.
deceptively difficult. Deceptively
It is
difficult.
tough. It is
And then
really
doing it 2 times in a row
tough. 2 days in a row.
is madness.
Yeah, especially if your bike breaks down 45 minutes into day 2, which mine did.
It did.
It was having problems at the end of day 1, kind of losing power, cutting
Yep.
out a little bit.
I believe the phrase you were like, this damn corn.
Yeah. Yes.
Because ethanol in the gas, right?
Yes.
And yep. And so I get a phone call at the shop. And you can hear, I'm not going to achieve this goal.
Yep.
He's done the first half of the goal. He's got 1,000 miles in one day, no sweat.
Yep.
But now the bike is acting up and he's literally dead on the side of the road.
Yep.
And we are troubleshooting via phone, right? And it's looking very much like a fuel pump. It's
Yep.
looking so much like a fuel pump.
Right.
Now,
Because every time that I got ethanol gas, it would start having this problem, and then I get clear gas and it would run fine.
there you go.
Well, that sure sounds
It
like a fuel
sure
pump
sounds
to
like a
me.
fuel pump. Yeah, fuel pump. And Vespas are kind of known to have a
Yep.
wonky fuel pump on some of the bikes.
Yeah, especially with ethanolylated gas.
Yep.
Especially when they're hot, like when you've been running all day.
All day at high rate of speed. Now, your bike is a 2007.
Yes, it is.
So it's like, that's a 14-year-old bike at this point. So having the particular fuel pump that he needs is a bit of a long shot. We got to check his VIN,
Yeah.
and
You're
he's
no stranger to some problems. You were telling me that's not the original motor in that.
Oh, that's
You've
not
been
the
all
original
through that
motor.
bike.
That's
Right.
not the original tank. That's not the original fuel pump either.
right.
Been locked up in
Right.
You've been in and out, in and
Yep.
out of that
Yep.
bike.
Yeah,
plenty.
have the van. So.
So he desperately did not want to put this thing in a truck under any circumstances. So
Yeah.
we're going crazy trying to find his fuel pump, and I decide, fuck it, I'm going to take I got a 2006 Vespa, and I'm going to pull my fuel pump out of my bike because I know it's good, and we're going to get ready and tear it down. So he's got one waiting for him when he comes in. And he calls back. He's like, I'm okay. What was the problem?
It was, and with thanks to Miss Emma, who I decided to call at the very last minute to see if she had any other thoughts of what could be going
Right.
on. She suggested, "Have you checked the injector?" And I just,
Yep.
and in my road weary haze, I was like, I didn't even think about that.
Because we know that the fuel pump's a problem. So to a hammer,
Yeah.
everything looks like a nail.
right,
And
so,
she,
and luckily I had the foresight because I had injector problems in the
Right.
past. I bought a spare injector and had it in my bike just in case. 5 minutes,
Yeah.
popped the old one out, put the new one in,
Yeah.
boom, started right up, ran like a top.
that's amazing. And then the bike ran fine.
Yep.
Coming in, yeah.
Here.
Now this was about 12:30, I think, local time
Yeah.
in Nebraska at mile marker 268 on I-80. and
Middle of
and
nowhere.
and I still had to get in
Oh, yeah.
to Cleveland by 9:49 in the morning.
Yep.
The next morning.
Yeah.
250. That's
And I had right, and I had I had some 950 some miles to go.
Yeah, you were behind the 8 ball now.
I was very
Yeah.
behind.
And you had
So-
Chicago, which is a nightmare.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I rolled through Chicago about 11 o'clock at night.
11 o'clock, which is honestly,
Which wasn't actually
yeah.
that wasn't the bad part.
Right.
The bad part is when I got crossed the line into Indiana, because there's this toll at the end of the highway in Chicago that
Yep.
you pay, and then you get to this no man's land in Indiana before the Indiana tollway
before the end
starts.
starts. Yep.
And I don't know why this happened. Maybe it was because it was right at midnight and some like shift let out and all these people were like had their their yayas, getting their yayas out going home. But it turned into like the Indianapolis 500.
Oh, it was a racetrack.
Yeah, I mean, and this was like literally there was a 45-mile-an-hour construction
Sure.
zone. People were doing 90 through it.
What's your cruising speed?
My cruising speed is 70 to 80 typically.
Yeah, right, exactly.
But I wasn't trying to get a performance award on during my iron bust.
Especially not Indiana.
Right.
Like LaPorte is notorious.
Yes.
If you can make it through LaPorte without getting a ticket, well done. You didn't support Notre Dame.
I stopped in LaPorte and gassed up and had some coffee
That's it.
actually.
Yeah, because LaPorte pays for Notre Dame, I'm certain of it, just in the form of tickets to people from Ohio and Illinois.
Yep.
But that's incredible.
Yeah.
And we did have this beautiful fantasy idea of him rolling in at 2 or 3 in the morning and getting 5 or 6 hours of sleep and rolling with us to
Yep.
breakfast and down. And he's like, 7 o'clock arrival time. We were just getting to breakfast after picking up the misfits at the airport. And I was just like, dude, just go to sleep.
Yep.
You have to go to sleep.
Yeah, well,
And-
I was thinking maybe I'll join you guys for breakfast. Once I get in,
It's
I was,
way out of the way.
I was excited. I was
Yeah.
like, I'm going to actually do this.
Yep.
And I thought, well, maybe I've got enough to get to breakfast and get
Champion!
back. But when I finally rolled in at I think it was 7:45 in the morning.
Oh my God.
I was spent.
And my basement
This
is
is no place to come for sleep.
no, and my basement
Yeah.
is dark as black night. Like
Yeah.
there's no light that goes into my basement. So once you go into my basement and close the door, it is silent and dark.
Yep.
And I'm like, yep, that's where you need to go. If you
Yeah.
need recuperative,
And that was definitely
yeah, it is deprivation chamber. That's exactly right.
That was the right prescription.
Yeah, yeah.
I will say though, the only thing I missed was I did not have a night banana before I went to sleep.
Oh, the night banana.
And I woke up with horrible leg cramps.
Yes, yeah,
About
you-
4 hours later.
Ask Liza, you must have a night
Yes.
banana. There's a rule about that. You
Yeah.
have to have a night banana. If
yeah.
you travel, if you sit in one position in a crouch or a tuck for a long period of time, you must have a night banana.
Yep.
Absolutely.
How much come for?
I think it was 2,760 miles to get here to.
Maybe Bobby's ready for a valve service.
Yeah. Right.
Oh yeah. I mean,
I'm almost ready for an oil change and a new rear tire.
and tire. Because when you're doing a 12-inch wheel at those speeds, it goes through a tire very quickly.
Yep.
So
Like a special seat. I'm just.
he does.
I have a modified Vespa seat that I've cut down a little bit to have a little bit more bend in my knees, because that's one of the limiting factors on the GTS is that your leg position is almost a 90-degree angle. Which
And where other people keep their helmet,
Yeah.
Tom keeps 3 gallons of gas.
it's a 4-gallon gas tank.
Yep.
I usually put about 3 gallons in because 4 gets a little bit heavy and top heavy in the rear. But with it absolutely full to
Yeah.
the top, I can go at least 325 miles without stopping. Well, let me correct that. The bike can go 325 miles without stopping.
The bladder, on the other hand.
The bladder, the knees, the back, the neck, all of that, I don't know if it can go that far, but if I needed to, I could.
Now wait, I do have to ask you a question because I know somebody's going to ask, and it will happen every time because my people who watch this video are there's broken people that watch this. Have you ever? Yeah, exactly. Have you ever resorted to a catheter?
I have not.
Okay, all right.
I've considered it,
Take the condom cap.
but here's the thing though. When you're doing long distance riding, or
Yeah.
at least when I do, I find that it's helpful to have those breaks, to be
Okay.
able to get off and stretch, and to just move in a different way than you've been doing for the last 4 hours on the bike.
Yep.
That really helps to break that up a little bit and refresh yourself before you continue on, because fatigue is your worst enemy on a long distance ride, and it literally can be a killer.
It is. There's a point in your ride when you're riding for a very, very long time. You'll know you're in trouble when you duck to go under bridges. So I've done it. I've been there. Been cranking down the road after 1,000 miles, and you're just realizing you're like, oh yeah. I wonder if I'm going to make it.
Yeah.
And you're like, it's a 13.6 bridge for fuck's sake, or whatever it is. And you're like, I don't know. And your brain is just screwing with you.
Yeah.
And you're like, I'm just going to chance it.
Right.
And you're like, wait, a truck just went under there an hour ago. But your brain isn't thinking right.
Right.
Yeah.
Or you see lights that aren't there.
Yep. Oh,
you know,
yeah.
in your
Yep.
peripheral vision, and you're just, wait, what?
Get off the exit ramp and forget to put your foot down.
Yeah, that's a bad one.
Yep. And you have no concept of speed anymore.
Yeah.
Because you're going so long at 70 miles an hour.
That
Start
just
seeing
seems like
traces.
normal.
Exactly. Yeah. And when you then go to stop, the world doesn't feel right. And it's a very weird thing when you're doing distance riding on a motorcycle. There's a weird thing that happens in your brain. So I think your mental health idea is really good.
Yeah.
That's super cool.
Yeah. And
What about weather?
well, that is a big gamble because you never know what the weather's going to be like if you're planning a route in advance. And I had really good luck this time. I only got a little bit of sprinkles at one point. But other than that, it was fine, and I just it was dry.
So now that we're at AMA Vintage Days and you're at the swap meet, what are you going to buy and take home?
well, I have been cruising the swap meets and getting only a few things that I will be able to fit on the bike. I found some vintage license plates for some friends back home who are interested in them from Oregon. So
No joke, though. I
Those
was
are beautiful,
surprised how much you paid for them,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, they're real.
apparently That was a steal.
yeah, they're hard to find.
What's
So-
hilarious is you do understand that everything this man carries, he carries with him on a Vespa,
Yep.
right? For his whole adventure. That's
Yep.
all with him on a Vespa. He's not shipping stuff here ahead of time.
Yep.
So we have this kind of tradition for the podcast, Cleveland Moto stuff. We always, a bottle of brown liquor is considered to be customary tithing. and that's
There are
normal.
So many bottles of brown liquor.
Tonight's going to be awesome. Now, but so here's the thing. Bagel shows up with not one, but two, bottle of Angostura rum and a bottle of amazing bourbon. And it's like an artisanal bottle. It's like cut crystal and gorgeous. And it weighs a lot. It's very heavy and very sharp and edgy. And yet he takes these two uncomfortable bottles and shoves them right up his top
bag.
case,
Dry
dry bag, right? And I felt like the scene from Pulp Fiction with the War Watch. And I was just like, he brought this and I was like, I'm such an ass. Like, why am I such a dick that he would bring this? I was like, oh
I've carried this
my God.
uncomfortable piece of crystal on my Vespa, and now I give it to you.
For 2,000 miles. It is your legacy. Yeah, it is true. Well, Bagel, again, always, man. Thank you so much. Kurt, you guys.
Great seeing you.
Yeah, we always look forward to
This
this.
is Mid-Ohio.
This is Mid-Ohio, and later on, I've heard we're gonna bust out the guitars.
But maybe.
I think we should, yeah.
Well, and,
So
I need to thank you, Phil, for all of your hospitality.
Horse brutality.
And all of your help over the years, including on my first Cannonball
Yeah.
in 2006 when I rebuilt a motor in your shop, pulling an all-nighter to
he
do
pulled
it.
it all-nighter. We changed 26 tires.
Yep.
We changed 26 tires. He did his motor on the bench,
Yep.
like Savage style. We pulled a motor out of a Honda Elite 250 that some idiot had decided to drive cross country and blew the motor up. And I happened to have an Elite 250 carcass behind my shed. I ran home. I drove home as quick as I got this Elite 250 carcass, brought it in. We did an organ transplant in my shop.
Yep.
There was not a single square footage of my entire shop that didn't have somebody sweating.
Yeah.
And we ordered in 56 pizzas
Yep.
over the course of the night.
It was insane.
If you don't think that I love this, you are wrong.
Yeah,
This
Moto
is
style.
this is Cleveland Moto style. It is savage.
Awesome.
It is just go drive on hard as fuck. And these guys are exactly what make me motivated and what I hope is making you motivated to do some stupid motorcycle or scooter project too.
Yep.
Yeah, right? So thank you guys. Well done. And remember to ride fast and take chances.
All right.
Ba 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 da ba 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 da ba 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 da